Okay.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started on the next panel. If you could find a seat, please. Okay, and I see no one wants to be in the front row with us. That's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jen Buckner. I'm with the U.S. Army Cyber School at Fort Gordon. I'd like to welcome you to this panel discussion on grooming youth for careers in cybersecurity. So what I view as the most important panel of the day, of course. I would like to thank GRU, Dr. Aziz, Dr. Kaufman, Monty Philpott, Susan Sweat, Karen Nixon for allowing us to be a part of this. I'm obviously here representing the Army, Fort Gordon, and the Cyber Center of Excellence. I do have our Commanding General, General Fogarty here, the Commanding General of Cyber Center of Excellence, because this is an exciting time for our Army. So we have recently established a new cyber branch. So many of you would be familiar with, we have a branch, the infantry branch, the armor branch, the special forces branch. So we have the first new branch in about 27 years. It's the cyber branch. And we have the mandate, really, to shape how the Army trains and develops and manages this new cyber force. And we understand that an important part of developing the Army cyber branch is really partnering with our current civilian cyber workforce, as well as this greater community. So I know this summit is really about empowering educators and leaders to help themselves develop their own programs. And that's starting a program, that's expanding an existing one, that's sharing best practices, leveraging already existing resources out there. And as we introduce our youth to careers in engineering and cybersecurity and computer science, our efforts then provide these foundational skills to support a number of different career options. So in the private sector, working for the government, or for the military, and perhaps a combination of all three of those. So we have a lot of industry developing new technologies, and of course we're raising a generation who are used to having technology in their hands at all times. And this interest in technology has created a great deal of momentum for cyberspace. And I know we need to develop education programs to capitalize on cyber talent. We can't wait for the university level. We really have to start K through 12 and groom them for these careers. And I always like to kind of highlight my approach to recognizing, I guess, the differences in hackers and engineers, because we need both. Engineers who put things together, and then hackers who break things, and we want to both. And of course, those foundational skills are part of all of those programs. But then I would also say that it's not just about technology, and I would quote Steve Jobs. It's in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's liberal arts married with the humanities that yields us the results that make our hearts sing. So it's a combination of all of these things. This panel, I'm going to let the intellectual horsepower of this panel do the work because they bring a great deal of experience to what the topic is today. So we'll follow a format in which I'll introduce each of them. They'll give a brief opening statement, kind of their niche area, and then our aim is to have about half the time for questions. So as they're talking, if you'd like to engage them in dialogue, we do so after all of them have spoken. So our first speaker, and I appreciate him getting up at 2 a.m. to travel from Fort Meade today, comes to us from the National Security Agency, Mark Wolkow. He has over 20 years of education and technology experience, county and state boards of education, State STEM Council, Department of Labor, and now he's the Director of Academic Outreach for the National Security Agency. So, Mark.
Okay. Thank you, Colonel. So because we have a number of us and we want to leave room for questions, I'm timing myself here. So 4 bullet points in 4 minutes. Okay, so at the National Security Agency, one of the things we do in K through 12 outreach is a program called the STEM Education Partnership Program. What this means is that our NSA affiliates, we have about 150 to 200 of them per year with a very small amount of vetting, go out to K through 12 classrooms in the central Maryland area. We do over 750 school visits per year. We have a variety of pre-programmed talks that they give. There's a speakers bureau. We also have a piece of this where we do science fair judging, STEM fair judging, things of that nature. The whole idea is to get people who are in the agency, professionals, out there in the classroom. The teachers will tell you that when someone else comes in, not the teacher that is, it has a marked impact on the students. And particularly at the higher grades, our parting comment, regardless of what the topic is, it's a STEM topic, has to do with careers, has to do with clearances, and has to do with things one should or should not do to be able to get that clearance. Another program that we've been running is called Gen Cyber. We did a prototype at 6 universities this summer. It's basically a summer camp for computer programming, but the twist is that we are trying to put in what cybersecurity pieces we feel need to be done in computer programming wherever it's taught. So the long-term goal, well, hopefully not that long, but the long-term goal on this is that we change the dynamic of how computer programming is taught so that the security is baked in, not an afterthought, or as in most places and times, not even considered at all. This is based on a program modeled after a program we did in languages, where we have summer programs across all 50 states in teaching languages less frequently taught, and it's had a great impact on the foreign language community and the way languages are taught in the United States. In the panel next door, one of my colleagues is talking about our Centers of Academic Excellence for Cyber Defense. We have a number of different Centers of Academic Excellence that we recognize at schools: cyber defense, research, cyber operations. There's an Intel community, Centers of Academic Excellence that are focused on intelligence analysis. And one of the key aspects of all of these programs, if there's an outreach requirement. So that school, in order to become certified, and anybody here from a school that's certified? Okay, a couple of you. So you know there's great advantages to have that certification. It helps attract talent. The requirement is to go out to K through 12. It's usually focused on high schools, and do outreach in those areas at the high schools. So it's great because it starts to get kids in those areas thinking about those careers, and it's actually a great recruiting tool for the school. One of the other things that we do is we work with the Maryland State Department of Education in trying to figure out what's the best way to get computer science. I mean, it's in the curriculum, but it's not a high school requirement. In fact, you don't even get credit for it when you graduate from high school. So the challenge in the education community is we're a very decentralized education community in the United States. Every state has their own requirements. So work in the state of Georgia or whatever state you are at to see how you can get computer science, computer programming as a credit or some sort of credit when the students graduate high school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Quick intro.
There we go.
Frank Zabrowski, retired Marine Corps colonel. So tremendous joint and engineering experience, most notably with DISA. And he's currently the director of competition operations for the Air Force Association's Cyber Patriot. And this is one of the many cyber defense competitions that's available to not only to colleges, but to K through 12 institutions. Frank.
Well, thank you, Colonel Buckner. Well, I'm from the Air Force Association, and I have to tell you that the reason why we're involved in our program called Cyber Patriot is because we look at the national technical workforce shortage and the cybersecurity issues in the United States as being a national security issue, not a military issue. It affects GM, it affects the dentist office down the street with HIPAA, it affects all parts of our lives. Cyber Patriot was created in 2009 through a consortium of academics, industry, and the Air Force Association to find a way to interest students in cybersecurity so that they would go on either cybersecurity or a STEM program. First of all, what is Cyber Patriot? Well, Cyber Patriot is three things. It's an education program, it's a competition, which is the foundation of Cyber Patriot, and also we have an elementary school program to go along with it. Cyber Patriot its mission is, like I said, to excite students to go into STEM fields, but also it does more than that. What we don't want to do is to have one of our competitors be a 19-year-old hacker who hacks a bank and ends up in federal prison. So in Cyber Patriot, we have some very strict rules about how you compete. And Cyber Patriot's not a hacking competition. Now, there's some of you out there who will say, well, hacking's good. You know what? That boat left the port about 15, 20 years ago, okay? Cyber Patriot does not endorse hacking, even though you have to know offensive, type things to be better at defense. But you see, to get in schools and the things you want to know what works, if you go into a school and say you're a hacking competition, I'm telling you right now, they'll throw you out. In Cyber Patriot, we go into a school, we say we're not hacking. In fact, one school in New York challenged us on our training materials because we had a cracker password program in it and said, you know what, you're a hacking company. We said, you know what, no, we're not, and we pulled it right out. Because what we want to do is teach people the right way so when they're facing some ethical ambiguity that they know what's right and what's wrong. Cyber Patriot basically is divided into 3 divisions. We have a high school division, which is called the open division. You could be a public school, private school, parochial school, home school, and you compete in your own division. If you're in what we call the all-service division, which are your GROTCs, Civil Air Patrol, Sea Cadets, those types, they have their own division to compete in. And then we have the middle school division, and that's for anybody who's in a middle school program. The high school, that's for anybody who's in a high school program that's endorsed by their state. The way the competition works is that we need a coach. Now, what we're looking for is somebody who's over 18 years old, obviously, but somebody who can be alone with minors. And the way you do that is you go through the schools. A teacher can be alone with minors because competitor protection is our #1 priority within the program. The next thing is you'll have a teacher that could be, say, a French teacher who's interested in doing something with cybersecurity because they know the bigger picture, it's good. Well, guess what? We have a mentor program at Cyber Patriot where we vet people from industry, academia, or just people on the street who volunteer to help out with teaching cybersecurity. We run them through a background check. And we have about 900 of them this year, and we put them out there for coaches to select and develop a relationship with. So we have the coach. Coach goes to our website, gets onto a team. They get a team number. Then the team consists of 2 to 5 students. Now, you can't have one on a team, right? Because the team's always 2. The thing industry likes about Cyber Patriot is that we have that teamwork and that leadership. Because you don't see that in a lot of other academic endeavors where it's all everybody in it by themselves. Well, the final thing is, I'm running up on my 5 minutes, is the final thing I'd like to say with Cyber Patriot is this year we have over 2,000 teams all the way across the United States of 2 to 6 students. Those teams consist of all kinds of students, everybody from somebody that's interested because their boyfriend or girlfriend's on the team to people who are taking computer science work in high school. So this is for everybody. Not everybody's going to go to college, but it's to, first of all, teach right from wrong when it comes to ethics. And the second thing is to interest people in either going to education or a career in STEM. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. And now, Ms. Barbara Massa. So 22 years of technology experience, pretty good laundry list here of McAfee, EMC, Cadence Design Systems. So she's currently the Senior Vice President of Human Resources for FireEye and is a recognized leader on global talent management. And if for anyone who works in this field, we know that talent management is an extremely important aspect from recruitment all the way through development and as bringing them on board. Barbara.
Great. Thank you for having me here. So hello from Silicon Valley, here in beautiful Georgia. And I obviously represent the both security element as well as coming from a technology company that actually builds software and hardware solutions that specifically are designed for advanced threat protection. I don't know if many of you know too much about FireEye, but we also joined forces and combined with a company called Mandiant that is probably very well known for releasing the APT1 report, kind of the platinum standard in incident response, in managed defense, and in doing things like breach handling, et cetera. So there was lots of companies named today in breaches that we've probably touched quite a bit of in helping them handle those issues. So what I was particularly interested in is obviously the shortage of cyber talent, getting those requirements for STEM and getting the interest more in the STEM sciences at a much earlier age, I think is vital. FireEye and certainly Mandiant have believed and really built our company on the fact that, cybersecurity is a global and national security initiative, and that we as a company in industry have a major part of that mission. And I think that, we believe that the left hand really does need to know what the right hand is doing. You heard Admiral Rogers and Mike McConnell talk about the, startups that are sharing information. We're certainly one of those. And we've talked a lot about, ways to make that sharing be much more easy. There's obviously the legal juggernaut, et cetera. We grew the company. We were a 400-person company just a mere 18 months ago. Over a period of that window of time, we actually hired over 2,000 people. We went into 37 new countries in 1 quarter alone. We have some of the best and brightest, along with obviously all those in the room and in the different branches of government and military, addressing the new threat landscape that exists today. And so I had the unique opportunity to lead an organization that had a just massive growth expansion, and this was a global expansion. So we went from essentially 2 locations to now operating in actually 41 countries around the globe. And so finding that talent, doing acquisitions, obviously buying companies, you got to figure out what you're going to buy, what you're going to build. And we took a few unique approaches to things that I think have helped us get the talent. I was really encouraged when Admiral Rogers talked about, looking for aptitude and not just looking for credentials. That's something that we take very seriously at both FireEye and Mandiant. In fact, our threat intelligence team has a world-renowned musician, a graduate of Seminary Institute. We've got a couple attorneys. We've got a rocket science. We've got a lot of mathematicians. And not all of them hold, master's degrees and PhDs. Now, many of them do. But it's that notion of creating culture and interest in being curious and being tenacious problem solvers and being, really relentless that you might not solve that problem overnight, but to, have the desire to continue to try and solve those problems. So we look for those types of skills. In addition to programming, network, forensics, all those things. But at the foundation, I think that the power and what we all need to be thinking about is how can we better share talent throughout government, military, and industry. I don't think we do that very easily today. And I think that, a lot more collaboration and partnership to make it incented and make it a desired career course to, be able to move seamlessly across those 3 areas. So interested to hear what's on your minds today when we get to the Q&A as well.
Thanks, Barbara. Jennifer. So Jennifer traveled from Hawaii to be here today. And in addition to being a reformed lawyer, she's here really today in her capacity as in talent development for Booz Allen Hamilton, and also significantly named as outstanding training initiative for recognized for her work on training initiatives in 2013. Jennifer.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. And I guess I'm supposed to say aloha. So aloha to everyone here. Thank you for having me. I am a part of Booz Allen Hamilton, and in my role at Booz Allen, I am responsible for a program that we have called Cyber University. And it's a program that we stood up several years ago, in part with the direction of Mike McConnell and our leadership in cyber, to really focus on what partnerships we needed to address this issue of talent planning, workforce planning, talent pipeline, and really recognizing that it's not just an industry problem from a private sector perspective, but really a much larger challenge around how do you get the right folks aligned to the right training to solve these problems that are challenging, not just from a national security perspective, but from a commercial and civil perspective, and from an international perspective. So I've had the good fortune to be able to lead that program, and we have been acknowledged throughout the training industry, and we're named by Training Magazine Hall of Fame this past year as the Outstanding Training Initiative of 2013. It's a significant acknowledgement in large part because it recognizes the partnership that we've developed with academic institutions. So our Cyber University, and I'm looking at my old school watch here to make sure I don't go over time, right? So keep me honest. Our program has several facets. One of them is just old school internal training, right? It's not enough to really have the technology stuff. You also have to know how to talk to people. You also have to know how to deliver the message to your client that something's broken and you have a way to fix it. If you can't translate some of that technical speak to perhaps a non-technical partner, you're going to have real challenges. So some of it's old school training like that. A lot of focus, of course, on certifications. Industry recognized certifications are a big part of being a cyber expert and of working in this space. So we've put a lot of focus in that, and we've been able to show really significant growth for our own staff in that area. We've also developed some pretty specific recommendations around experiential learning, and I think it really speaks to this position of aptitude, right? It's not all going to be in credentials, but it's also going to be about doing new stuff. And for folks in the cyber and in the cloud space, this is really a challenge because some of this stuff is so new, or perhaps is in a space that you can't get industry recognized credentialing around it. So being able to document that kind of experiential training has been a big part of what we've been able to do for our staff to make sure that they're not just at cutting edge, but that they can stay in that space as they develop their careers and continue to support their clients. And the most significant part that I'll talk just briefly about is our partnership with University of Maryland University College. We created, and by we created, I mean we got together and shared intellectual capital and our own subject matter experts to create a graduate certificate program to really develop folks in the cyber arena, not just for our own internal corporate structure, but for all of those in the industry. It is a 100% virtual program. It's been in existence for just under 5 years now, and it's been really, really successful. And one of the reasons that it's been successful is that we've been able to partner with our colleagues in government to say, what do you really need? We know what we need based on what the contracts are and the recs are, but what do you all need? And how do we look not at a snapshot of today, but how do we look forward to where we want to be and what we anticipate those challenges are going to be? So there's plenty of information not only at boozallen.com, but at the UMUC website. I'm happy to answer questions when we're through. But we're really proud of that program because it was built in partnership. It continues to be run in partnership, and it's an example of one of the academic providers with whom we've really come closely connected to address not just the needs of cyber in general, but also local communities like this one that say, look, we've got a lot of stuff going on here in Augusta. It's new, it's growing. Maybe this isn't something we've wrapped our arms around before, and so we're looking for prototypes. We're looking for platforms that we can look at. We're looking at lessons learned, some action after reviews maybe, and we're looking to create something that's really going to fit the needs, not just of the population in general, but the population in specifics. And so it's been an honor to be a part of the program, and it was really nice to be recognized this past year for it. So I think I'm still in time.
Well done. Next up, we have CW5 Al Molenkoff. He is the Fort Gordon's Command Chief Warrant Officer and also happens to be the Army's Senior Cyberspace Technician. So our Army Cyber Force has been directly shaped by Al's recruitment and training initiatives, and also significantly recognized as NSA's Learning Innovator of the Year. So Al, if you could.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I just wanted to take a few minutes today and throw that slide up there on that big, beautiful screen behind us. I'm very passionate about technology, education, and training folks. And so what I wanted to do is pass along some techniques and insights that I've developed over a couple of decades of doing this at various levels. If you look at the top of the screen there, you see 3 real key principles for young learners. And I say young learners of all ages because I have a lot of 40-year-old folks that we try to work our way through different types of technologies, and they're eager learners as well. So hands-on first, what we find is it helps to engage students and kind of demystify really complex things. And unfortunately, cyberspace is full of complex things with technology. The second thing, cause and effect. Young learners need to see that impact of a blinking diode or a servo that turns based on some action that they've created or some code that they've written that really helps bring it home for them. And then third, purpose correlation can go a long way towards sustaining the momentum that young learners need. And that's really one of the key items. So if you go to the next 2 spots on the slide, you'll see the arrows pointing from left to right. The purpose of that is it's kind of a glide path that I've noted over a couple of decades. If you start with very low complexity, those projects on the left, such as simple microcontrollers, single-purpose experiments, MIT Media Lab, Scratch, for example, is a really great tool for learning about how to create presentations and video. Single sensor projects, forced MEMS. I guess the point I'm trying to make with this center part is you don't have to have the horsepower of a major corporation necessarily to teach in a classroom. In fact, we've opened eyes by being able to show something as simple as Google Translate, and then how can you apply that technology that goes into Google Translate. Students will be very innovative with that and say, hey, I can translate my order to an Italian pizza store. There's lots of different ways to be creative in the classroom, especially on a budget. So going from left to right, you see some of those key items. And then I also want to highlight there at the bottom, the golden rule for young learners. Everyone's trying to dimensionally comprehend how to build creativity into our youth. And what we have found is, honestly, you have to make time and you have to teach it. So when you do teach something, you have to set aside some time to say, okay, class, that's how Google Translate works. That's how the web page delivers that data to you. Now I want everyone to take a few minutes and write down 3 different ways that you could apply that technology in some part of your life. So there's a lot. Purpose correlation is really good to sustaining it long term, and I could give you a couple of examples of that if you want. But at the end of the day, it's all about trying to bring it home and sustain it long term for all learners of all ages. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Al. And then finally, so we brought in Second Lieutenant Anthony Mendez as our truce to power. So he's going to tell us if we were right or got it wrong. But Anthony is one of the Army's first 6 cyber lieutenants.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Anthony Mendez. I graduated from the United States Military Academy, class of 2014. While at the Academy, I majored in Electronic Information Technological Systems. That's like what other universities call Infosys. You can take a number of classes, electrical engineering, computer science, a nice mix, which I think is essential for a field we want to call cybersecurity. It encompasses a lot of things. Some of the extracurricular activities I was involved with were the Special Interest Group for Security, Audit, and Control, SIGSAC, which was our hacking club, the Cadet Competitive Cyber Team, a Capture the Flag team we had at our school, and the Electronic Experimenters Group, which was a robotics makerspace, for those of you that are familiar with that. What's effective? I'm interested in teaching people with, similar to Chief said, young learners of all ages. I can take a clean slate, I can take somebody with 0 experience, or somebody that's had a background 15 plus years in industry, in IT, and teach them what I call hacking. But all it really is creative thinking. The first thing I do is I try to remove the stigma from the word. I teach them hacking is not a bad thing, hacking is a good thing. I teach them ethics, the fundamentals that you can build on, because I don't have resources that industry does to go and hire these people. We build them from scratch. Something people can do if you work at a university, if you work at an elementary school, K through 12, that's the best time to do it. I didn't have those opportunities in high school. I wish I did. AP computer science courses are some of the things I've seen that worked best for my peers. I have a friend, she actually is in Maryland and part of the program, and she was telling me that she taught her 5-year-old sibling how to code using Code Academy's Hour of Code. There's programs similar to that. I recommend Khan Academy to a lot of people. Girls Who Code is what I've given to my little sister, because I think if you can teach somebody to program, they see that it's not just about interacting with the computer, it's about thinking outside the box, creative thinking, and these are the people that go on to become the best people for teaching, studying, applying cybersecurity. There's other programs. If you go target an older age group, I know for ages 9 through 14, there's like first Lego robotics clubs a lot of schools have. these aren't resource intensive. They're not very expensive to implement. So now we can target as young as age 5. We can get older. And if you look at high school and college, there's work-study programs. I had the opportunity to intern at the National Security Agency in college. The guy that sat next to me was a high school senior. I didn't know that existed. I wish I did. I would have done it. And if we can get these resources out to people, tell them to apply, they're going to get started early. They're going to take it upon themselves to learn, teach themselves. So my main point is formal education. If you can have it in the classroom, if you can afford a computer science teacher, add that to your curriculum. Supplement it with informal learning. Have the clubs, the extracurricular activities, the maker spaces, the hacker spaces, where people feel welcome. Other people can come together, talk about their projects, what they're working on, and it's a very grassroots type of approach, and it fosters an environment in which people learn to help themselves and teach others. Thank you.
Okay, with that, so we've asked all of our panel members to not just talk about the theoretical, but really include some practical examples and resources that are available today, so that if you're a program that's, again, getting started from scratch or you want to build upon one, they have concrete examples of those things. So with that, I'd open the floor for questions. And I knew my own teammate would ask us the first tough one. Oh, okay. Sergeant Williams, hold on. Yes, sir.
Hi.
Please go ahead.
My name is Cobbs Nixon, and I'm a homegrown Augustan, and glad to see everyone here. I'm also involved with an organization called Hack Augusta, and it's an outgrowth of Makerspace and an outgrowth of an IT incubator. We've just leased a building and are somewhat overwhelmed with demands for cash flow. And I liked your idea, the lady in the white sweater, about partnerships. We need help or some guidance on identifying partners in this particular endeavor.
Great. Well, I think there's a couple of things that I would recommend. There's certainly companies that are like FireEye, the company that I work for, that have a very vested interest in partnering. And so I think that would be one route. And we actually do partner with quite a few organizations. And I'd love to hear more about yours. So that will be my sideline conversation to you. But I think that is finding local companies that may have a presence in the area is a great one. I think you can also go at the larger organizations. So I'll pick off an Intel, Microsoft. These are companies that have quite a bit of capital and are quite cash rich, if you will, that also have a very shared goal. I know Intel in particular, which is actually the company that acquired McAfee, my former company, and they had a whole arm that was just dedicated to getting girls into the STEM sciences, in getting the younger workforce engaged in all things technology. So it wasn't just particularly cyber, but all things technology. So I think going at companies both from a small perspective that would like to partner and create those skills, as well as finding the individuals in the larger companies that are going to have the capital and a little larger pocketbooks, if you will, that might be able to provide some additional funding.
Speaking from a Cyber Patriot experience, what we found is that your larger corporations also have foundations. And with that, they'll pull in the rest of the company. Cisco is a big one. Northrop Grumman, that's another one. So I would reach out far and wide for those. The other thing, too, I'm not sure if you're looking as a partnership for funding or if you're looking for a partnership to have intellectual capital put into your program. But one of the things to take a look at is there are a lot of grants out to individual schools, maybe even to the state level, that you won't find at the national level. And we, at Cyber Patriot, we went through all the grants we could possibly find, and there's a lot of foundations within your state that you may want to check out.
So I would build upon that question because, Mark, I'd like to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit more, to pull the string on the grant piece, because in your experience, I think some of the programs that you identified, it starts to become this, this groundswell of support because you start small and then the grants, you get one grant and that builds upon the program.
Yeah, so in our example, the Gen Cyber program that I mentioned that we prototyped this summer, actually that was funded by the National Science Foundation, not NSA. We did some of the work in terms of figuring out which schools and also doing the admin piece of that. And next year, in 2015, the National Science Foundation will be involved once again. We do not know whether we're going to have 6 programs or 30 programs or somewhere in between. And following that, we're seeking federal funding, at least first, to grow the program. But that's a program that could well indeed involve the private sector at some point if we do that. So our agency has grant funding. NSF does a lot of grant funding. In fact, they have a whole division for cyber. And NASA, the one with the other A, NASA, not NSA. Sorry, it was supposed to be funny. And the other thing that you can do, at least from a federal perspective, is you can go out to grants.gov. That's a federal website which has a pretty good search capability, and you might be able to do something there.
Great.
One thing real quick on that, too, is that success begets success. So any success you've had locally, don't keep it private. Advertise it to the bigger people. NSA, for years we tried to get a grant from NSA, and then finally we got a scholarship grant for $55,000 this year. And so thanks to NSA in general and Mark specifically.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, Master Sergeant Williams from Cyber School, as you know. My question is in regards to cyber ethics. So we talked a lot about cyber talent and cyber aptitude and educating and training for that capacity, starting even as early as K through 12. But in many ways, I would say that acceptable behavior in the real world is the same as in cyberspace. Nevertheless, we kind of find a divide in people's behavior. How important do you think it is to start training for the panel? How important do you think it is to start teaching and educating and training students at the K through 12 level on cyber ethics? And how do you see us really kind of getting after that task and educating our youth to have a standard for cyber ethics across the country, particularly in regards to how there's different core beliefs and philosophies and ways of thinking amongst our youth today?
I'll start. So at NSA, we believe it's critically important, and we are putting ethics into pretty much all of the programs from the K through 12 programs, and particularly at the collegiate level, the Centers of Academic Excellence. We have what are called knowledge units. And for a school to be recognized as a center of academic excellence, they have to meet certain required and then certain optional knowledge units. The ethics piece is a fundamental part of that. If you don't get that part, you don't get the recognition. And what we'd like to see is something that is more formal, again, at the K through 12 level, not only to learn how to program, to have security built in, and to have that ethics piece there at an age-appropriate level.
One of the things that I think has to happen is the ethics have to be socialized. You can teach it all you want, but one of the things we found in our competition, and I was surprised to find it, is that you have teachers who, they're not going to teach kids how to cheat, but also you have students who are admonishing other students for doing dumb things online. And I think it comes from, a generational type experience where you have a generation of the digital immigrants, but I think as time goes on that we just have to keep reinforcing it. And Mark talked more of the formal way, but I think the informal way is just as important.
Yeah, I'd like to add on that. I think that having a culture of ethics and reinforcing that, not just in the training piece, but in the implementation and delivery component is absolutely critical. I'm a training geek, right? That's what I do for a living. The research is terrifying when you look at what folks actually retain from training sessions. It's minuscule in some cases. And so it's important to talk the talk, but it's even more important to be creating a culture where you are incentivized and it is really unequivocal that you will walk the walk. There are no exceptions. And that's a big part of what we've created at Cyber University and a big part of what's allowed us to continue to be as involved in this space as we have been. So I think there's no doubt about it. If we're going to continue to move forward in the cyber arena, we're going to have to create a culture across business, across industry, and within our colleagues in government and the DoD that absolutely makes no exceptions for folks who do not conduct themselves to the ethical standard that Admiral Rogers described this morning. We follow rule of law. That's it. End of story. And that's how it has to be. And that's really a cultural thing.
Yes, question.
Yes, ma'am. This question is directed towards Mr. Walkow. My name is Andrew Nonweiler. I teach a cyber curriculum for Department of Defense. And I'm very interested in your cyber outreach program for the K through 12 program. I have a friend who works with exceptional children in the Richmond County area. And I would love to find a way to bring what you do up in Maryland down to the local community here. If you could adjust that, that'd be great. Thank you.
So the program, the prototype program that I spoke of, yes. So it's very interesting if you're a federal agency and you have money to give out. There are certain ways that you can and can't give that money out. The National Science Foundation, essentially this past year, went to schools that had an existing NSF grant, and the money for Gen Cyber was an add-on. They were able to do that because the laws allow that, because we had very, very little time to make this program happen last summer, and so that's how that program worked. This summer is probably going to be similar to that. However, once we're done with the pilot this summer, and assuming the money is federal dollars, we are required to put out what's called a broad area announcement, a BAA in our lingo, and that will be posted, that will be out on the web, and then anybody can submit a grant application. It can help if an organization knows about it and is interested in a forum such as this, to send an email or be in contact in some way. And oftentimes when we have grants, that grant opportunity not only is posted, but then can go out to interested parties as well. Doesn't guarantee anybody gets the money, but it does sometimes help with timing and the ability to get grant applications in when they need to be and in the proper format and that kind of thing, if that helps.
One thing to add to that is that no doesn't mean never. No just means not right now.
I was going to say, I think there are some other opportunities too, like for like Girls Who Code and some of the other youth coding camps that I think are looking to expand as well. So I think some of it is just both figuring out where they're available and trying to pull one in.
And I'll just add one more comment to that is, not to forget about industry as well. We do fully baked seasonal internship programs that run, the balance of a seasonal summer, if you will, down to bite-sized shadow days. We've brought in young, like 5th and 6th graders in to do things like building contests. So, companies want to do that. Not only is it a community outreach, the employees want to do that. Everyone's got a busy day job, but don't forget about reaching out to companies because there's definitely a desire.
Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Brock Daniels. I'm a human resources professional with automatic data processing. And one of the earlier speakers mentioned the idea of maybe some in and out of corporate America and the public sector cyber world. And I was wondering if any of you all had any vision for that or any actual programs where we could see some movement and talent development between corporate America and the Cyber Command or other organizations.
Can I take that one?
Absolutely.
I don't think we've certainly solved this, but we've definitely done a few things at FireEye and Mandiant, both with our customers as well as some branches of the military. So we did a particular partnership with the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, where we have done a rotational program there. So they maintained employment, but essentially interned, if you will, at FireEye, had a specific supervisor, had tasks, had responsibilities, knowledge sharing for a period of time, and they essentially then went back. We did the same thing with West Point. With we had a handful of cadets that, again, came in, and it was structured much like an internship. So the employment maintained at that particular branch, but then they were cleared, they came on, and were sort of onboarded into the FireEye environment. We've done something else with a few customers where we've not really called it an internship, but it's a residency program. So we actually do have a couple of customers that, again, they stay on their employment, their payroll, if you will, but they literally come and will work alongside the FireEye team. And there's some privacy issues, things that we have to keep them away from, if you will. But they essentially get trained and do a residency to kind of learn how, we approach network security or breach response or incident handling or network forensics or vulnerability analysis, because we do have quite a bit of that skill set inside the company. And a lot of times it's kind of teach the teacher. And there's nothing better than coming and doing that for 6 months. So we've done that with customers. My hope is that we build more and more of that. You have to cross a lot of legal hurdles when someone is staying on one company's payroll, but yet then you're coming into my email infrastructure and coming onto my network and all those sort of things. So I don't think we make it as easy on ourselves as we could, and I think there's more work to be done there. But those would be a couple of examples.
Yeah, rotational assignments are kind of the hot topic in the HR world right now, right? Everyone's trying to figure out what makes sense. And I know that it's something that we definitely do internally. And one of the reasons why we do it is because cyber isn't one thing, right? So we talk about folks who are hacking, whether you like the term or not, right? And that's a great skill to have, but you also need some math skills. And maybe you also need some software development skills. And maybe you also, it completely depends on the individual. And so one of the things that we've been trying to finesse, and we've been working on as part of the larger Booz Allen platform, is how are we identifying through a competency-based analysis what are the core critical skills all the way around that we want folks to have within this space, and cloud has a lot of crossover with it as well when we look at some of our cloud folks. And what are those things? And then we can look at an individual and say, you don't have the math skills that you need, for example, right? We're going to send you to a rotation here. You're going to take some classes. You're going to learn some math stuff that maybe you haven't mastered yet. And then we're going to put you in a role for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, depending on the situation. And we're going to make sure that not only did you get that training, but that you have the opportunity to really dig into that and make sure that you can apply that training. And what happens at the end of the day is it gives folks a much broader spectrum. So when we talk about thinking of solutions outside of the box, when we hear about the need for creativity in our cyber professionals, that's how we do it. We say, these are the core critical things that we think everyone needs to have, and then we need you to bring something else. And what is that something else? I don't know. It's going to be different for different folks, right? So it's not this cookie cutter kind of solution. And, it was funny. The last panel said, we just kind of want to say what the keynote folks said, right? It's the same themes over and over. We're never going to get a cookie cutter solution, but when we start looking at creativity as a broader set of skills that are related, that's where we find really good talent pipeline solutions and really good staff development that keeps folks in the same place for a really long time because they're deeply engaged.
So we'll take the last 2 questions. I know we started a little late, but we'll go ahead and finish up.
I'm Specialist Peterson. I'm a soldier at Fort Gordon. Some of the panelists talked about providing resources and education to children in middle school and even high school in terms of getting them interested in cyber. But I was curious about the other side of the equation, cyber educators. Is there any sort of initiative to get people who are already cyber professionals, getting them into mentorship or teaching positions so that they can bring those sort of skills to people at the elementary school, middle school, high school level? Because when I was going through middle school and high school in the early 2000s, usually it was just whatever history teacher they could get to teach typing or teach HTML, you could usually learn a lot more from the IT guy at the school than you could from the actual instructors. So I was just wondering if there was any sort of push to get that to be seen as a viable career path for an IT professional to go back and teach.
So I have a partial answer to that, at least. The program that I talked about, Gen Cyber, is actually for both students as well as teachers in middle and high school, just like our language program is. And at least this past summer, when we had our review of that program, it was very interesting in that of the teachers that were there, many of the teachers were not computer science teachers. They were teachers in other areas who had an interest in computer science, who wanted to pull that curriculum into their area and merge it together. And so that actually surprised me a little bit. And I'm not sure which way the industry is going to go, but we certainly want to encourage more people to get engaged, and maybe looking beyond just the computer science teacher is one way to enhance that.
Thank you for the question. This is actually, so the Army's just standing up a branch right now. Cyber, a lot of it is still undefined. And one of the career fields, at least for officers, is going to be, right now we have it all summed up as just cyber officer. In the future, there's plans to break it down, such as like software development would be a different job for an officer, and maybe an enlisted personnel. And one of the things I'm encouraging that we take hold of is outreach, community outreach, whether it's to industry or to academia. So this is different. The Army hasn't done anything like this before, because tankers don't go to the local high school, the local college, and talk about tanks. I think we should take our trained personnel, cyber officers, and send them to college. I know people that do this on their own time, don't get paid, they volunteer. I do this informally. I teach out of a hotel lobby to whoever comes, like the basics of network security. If we can formalize that as part of the cyber branch, I think it'd be a great step forward in terms of community outreach.
I agree, absolutely. And I loved your comments earlier when you were talking about the Lego competitions and some of the robotics competitions. I know Booz Allen celebrated its 100 years this year, and our challenge to our staff was really around volunteerism. And we've been tracking the hours that our staff have volunteered. And one of the things we've seen a lot of our staff be really interested in are those sorts of things. And we've had the opportunity to sponsor teams and really get folks more in an organized fashion rather than as a one-off involved in those sorts of things. And mentorships and all of those junior competitions, they make a huge difference. And it's astounding how many folks really want to give back. And I think creating a culture that really bakes that in is the way we need to go forward.
And I would share a best practice from partner community Huntsville, in which they're working to establish some criteria for teaching certifications, but in the meantime, they've partnered volunteers with their teachers so that classroom experience is a combination of that already certified teacher with a subject matter expert, so that can leverage that without the long lead time to get the actual certification, but we can still take advantage of your expertise, and in line with what Lieutenant Mendez said as well. Okay, our one last question. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm a career and technology education director for a local school district, and I just wanted some resources that I could use to help to build a curriculum that would get my students started on a path in this career field.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about curriculum off the shelf and opportunities.
Right, I can actually help you out a little bit with that, sir. So, I mean, up on the screen, there's several company names there. It depends on what your end state really is, but I think at the young learner level, you can go out to one of the companies like Parallax.com and you can get a package tailored for you, a small robotics package or a small microcontroller package, something that has servos, LEDs, lights, and that can help you shape the direction that you want to go in by applying that little by little. So Parallax does that. I know that there's some other companies on there as well that has small. And I would also encourage you, honestly, sir, to look at some of the Forrest MIMS notes documents, because there's some very, very simple ways to learn and teach in an entertaining fashion that's available. He's done that for years in those documents. So you can pick those up from Amazon.com.
In Cyber Patriot, we offer free training materials, but for curriculum development, our partner, Cisco, they have a networking academy, outstanding, for running down that road too. So, but if you want, you're welcome to come to our website, uscyberpatriot.org. Take a look.
I'll take the opportunity to put a couple more plugs in. The resources are free online. People just don't know about them. You have to encourage people to go looking for them. So sites like Khan Academy, Code Academy, they teach you everything from like elementary school math to calculus. And they have programming lessons as well. You can use that as a supplement to your curriculum. You can follow they already have a curriculum. Why reinvent the wheel?
Okay, and with that, we'll conclude the panel. All of our members will stick around because, again, they do have some firsthand experience in implementing these things. But I appreciate everyone's both attention and interest in the topic. Thanks.